In 2008, Clinica Adelante, a 33-year-old community health center in Phoenix, Arizona, almost went out of business, which would have stranded thousands of low-income patients without proper health care. Aveen Satay-Tafoya became its new CEO, and she knew that they needed to refine their brand story if they were going to survive. Using our story cycle system, we crafted a new brand narrative, renamed Clinica Adelante to Adelante Healthcare, and they became known as the only system providing sustainable healthcare for all. Adelante's three story pillars included sustaining services for all Arizonans regardless of their ability to pay, sustaining their business model by greening their operations and attracting only healthcare providers who actually cared about serving the underserved, and finally, sustaining the health of the communities Adelante served. Adelante Healthcare opened beautiful new LEED certified clinics and shared their brand narrative of sustainable healthcare for all, which made them immensely likable. They became the trusted provider and one of the fastest growing community health centers in the country. In fact, Adelante Healthcare grew by more than 600% over 8 years with a tiny budget for advertising, marketing, and public relations. How were they so successful? Well, it's because they used a concept that I now call the know, like, and trust storytelling flywheel strategy to build momentum for their growth. Now, we didn't call it a flywheel back then. It just kind of happened naturally. In hindsight, that was an intuitive flywheel on which we helped Aveen and her team build their communication strategy. So now, I want to make the business of story, know, like, and trust storytelling flywheel intentional so you can use it to easily focus your storytelling strategy and quickly ignite your growth. Hello and welcome to this 450th anniversary edition of The Business of Story. I'm Park Howell with a special training for you today on how to activate your know, like, and trust storytelling flywheel to create a story marketing strategy that gains momentum with every revolution. You know, you can learn all of the story structures you want to make your business communications more clear, compelling, and effective. They really, really work. But if you don't have a dynamic content strategy on how, when, where, and for what purpose you are telling your stories, then you won't have the impact you seek to grow your revenue, your people, and your brand. Your storytelling flywheel is an easy but powerful 3-step process with a few important moving parts that I'm eager to share with you on today's show. So, let's get after it. So what is the business of story, know, like, and trust storytelling flywheel? Well, to be clear, the concept of the flywheel effect was first developed by business consulting icon Jim Collins in his 2001 seminal book, Good to Great. I'm sure you've probably read it. By definition, a flywheel is a heavy revolving wheel that is used in a machine to increase momentum and therefore provide greater stability to the machine. Given its weight, the flywheel is difficult to push from a standstill, but once it starts moving, it gradually builds momentum, which eventually enables the wheel to turn by itself and create even more of its own momentum through a self-reinforcing loop. Collins shared this story in his Flywheel monograph. He said, "In the autumn of 2001, just as Good to Great first hit the market, Amazon.com invited Jim to engage in a spirited dialogue with founder Jeff Bezos and a few members of his executive team. This was right in the middle of the dot-com bust, when some wondered how or even if Amazon could recover and prevail as a great company. Jim taught them about the flywheel effect that he'd uncovered in his research. Quote, In creating a good to great transformation, there's no single defining action, no grand program, no single killer innovation, no solitary lucky break, no miracle moment. Rather, it feels like turning a giant, heavy flywheel. Pushing with great effort, you get the flywheel to inch forward. You keep pushing, and with persistent effort, you get the flywheel to complete one entire turn. You don't stop, though. You keep pushing. The flywheel moves a bit faster. 2 turns, then 4, then 8. The flywheel builds momentum. 16, 32, moving faster, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. Then, at some point, breakthrough. The flywheel flies forward with almost unstoppable momentum. End quote. Well, Bezos took the flywheel effect to heart, and he created one that has enabled Amazon to become an iconic global brand, of course. So how is it structured? Well, think of Amazon's low prices as what initially gets the wheel turning. Once these low prices attract more consumers and propel more third-party sellers to join the marketplace, there are more stakeholders, and Amazon can steadily start to increase the difference in market share between themselves and other online marketplace competitors. In the book, The Everything Store, Jeff Bezos and the Age of Amazon, journalist Brad Stone explains that the flywheel effect in the company's early stages worked like this. Lower prices led to more customer visits, more customers increased the volume of sales and attracted more commission-paying third-party sellers to the site. That allowed Amazon to get more out of fixed costs, like the fulfillment centers and the servers needed to run the website. This greater efficiency then enabled it to lower prices further. Feed any part of this flywheel, they reasoned, and it should accelerate the loop. This demonstrates the chief characteristic of the flywheel effect, which is the momentum that occurs when small wins accumulate over time, creating continued growth and improvement. Similarly, the business of story know, like, and trust storytelling flywheel effect. In fact, I'm going to change the word effect to impact because that's actually what you want, right? The storytelling flywheel impact happens when small branding, advertising, marketing, and sales wins for your business through the stories you tell build on each other over time and eventually gain so much momentum that growth almost seems to happen by itself. Think of it like a top. A top doesn't work unless you spin it, right? The faster you spin it, the more stable it becomes, and the longer it does its dance for you. Once its momentum starts to slow, it does what? It wobbles, right? And if it loses all of its momentum, it falls over and lays there, kind of like a death spiral. Heaven forbid that happens with your brand. In his excellent article called 10 Lessons on Using the Flywheel Effect to Grow Your Business, Cameron Deach, Chief Revenue Officer at Atlassian, an AI service provider, said, quote, "Put simply, the central idea is that your customers are your best salespeople. If you make them happy, they'll tell their friends. And if you make your product easy to learn about and purchase, those friends will buy it. Then your new happy customers will tell their friends." And so on, and so on, and so on. In this article, he said that the flywheel effect is a virtuous cycle that has 3 major components: attract, engage, and delight. Number 1, attract. Draw prospective customers to you with helpful content that is easy to discover. SEO, social media, targeted advertising, and live virtual events all have a role to play here. Focus on earning their attention rather than forcing yourself into their line of sight. Number 2, engage. Now that you've made a good impression, make it easy for your prospects to learn about your product on their own terms and in their own time, and ultimately make it easy for them to buy it. Nurture campaigns, free trials, and a self-serve purchase flow are your best friends in this phase. Number 3, delight. Design your product to be as easy to get started with as possible. Offer documentation and knowledge bases that help customers get more value out of what you're offering. Solicit customer feedback and act on it. Your goal here is to turn users into fans, right? Who will recommend your product to their peers, their friends, and even to perfect strangers through online reviews and social media. Notice how many times he uses the word easy there. Deitch continues by saying, reducing friction is key to growing your business with the flywheel model. Flywheels, and I'm talking physical flywheels here, the kind used in motors or rowing machines, are incredibly efficient at storing and releasing energy. The faster a flywheel spins, the more energy it stores, and you make it spin faster by removing friction and applying force. You can learn more about the flywheel effect through Deitch's article by just simply going to the show notes and clicking on his 10 lessons. Now that you know about the flywheel effect and how Bezos has relied on it ever since Collins taught it to him and his team at Amazon, there is another brand sentiment from Jeff Bezos that plays into the business of story flywheel impact. He said, "Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room." Well, I've updated this quote to say, "Your brand is the stories people tell about you when you're not in the room." Hold on to that idea for a second. Your brand is the stories people tell about you when you're not in the room. In addition to Jim Collins and Jeff Bezos, let's bring a third person to this storytelling flywheel conversation who inspired our storytelling version of it. And that is legendary sales coach Bob Burg. Bob is important to this conversation because he coined the phrase, quote, "All things being equal, people do business with and refer business to people they know, like, and trust," end quote. Just like attract, engage, and delight are the primary spokes of the Collins flywheel effect, know, like, and trust are the spokes of the business of story flywheel to create the greatest impact you are looking for. Why? Because to get your storytelling flywheel initially turning, you must be known as the category leader in your market. What is it that you do differently and more distinctively than your competition? If you don't stand for something, then you won't stand out in our crowded, noisy world. If your customers don't know what you stand for, then you won't stand out to them in the highly competitive arena we all compete in. If your colleagues don't know what you stand for, then it becomes difficult to attract and retain top talent. If the communities you serve don't know what you stand for, then you won't generate the goodwill you seek in the social circles you swirl around in. The flywheel effect, like my 10-step story cycle system, is a virtuous circle that expands with every momentum-generating revolution. Since people do business with and refer business to people they know, like, and trust, then ask yourself, what are you known for? And do your ideal customers actually know you for that purpose? Once you attract your ideal customer by being known for what you do, then you begin building momentum through the stories you tell about the outcomes you make happen in your customers' lives. These anecdotes help you become more likable because people can relate to you. Your stories are clear and they're compelling, not boring. I mean, when was the last time you were bored into buying anything? So instead of boring product pitches, services selling, exhaustive laundry lists of features and functions, blah, 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 you are going to ignite the limbic buying brain through the stories you share about the people you help. This makes you vastly more likable. It just makes sense, right? Especially in the business-to-business world, because most B2B communicators fall into the boring-to-bored category because they yak about products instead of solution selling with storytelling. I can't tell you how many PowerPoints riddled with bullets that kill an audience that I've had to sit through. How about you? Now, you're really getting your business of story, know, like, and trust storytelling flywheel moving by becoming immediately known for what you stand for that makes you stand out among your competition. Remember Aveen? Adelante Healthcare became known as the leader in providing sustainable healthcare for all. Remember, it led to 600% growth. Once known for something unique and needed, your likability grows with the anecdotal stories you tell. These stories connect deeply with your prime prospects because they can see themselves in them. These prospects make better buyers that lead to converted customers to accelerate your revenue growth. As I mentioned, the third spoke of your storytelling flywheel is trust. All things being equal, people do business with and refer business to people they know, like, and trust. It's a compounding effect. So how do you build remarkable trust in you, your brand, and your offering? First, by delivering on the promises you make in the stories that amplify your likability through credibility. You simply deliver exceptional customer service to fortify your customers' trust in you. And like all great stories, you help your story scale by encouraging your customers to share their experience with their world. That way you grow with the most effective form of advertising there is, and that is, as you know, free word-of-mouth marketing. 600% growth for Adelante Healthcare purely through their know, like, and trust storytelling flywheel that generated immense amount of free word-of-mouth marketing for them. Now you can really see how your storytelling flywheel gains momentum. Even if you haven't created a flywheel effect for your business per Jim Collins' approach, and you should, you can activate your business of storytelling flywheel right now. By the way, if you want a quick overview and short guide on how to take advantage of the flywheel effect to grow your business, I highly recommend reading Jim Collins' short book called Turning the Flywheel, a monograph to accompany Good to Great. The link is in the show notes. He shares many examples of successful flywheels created for the aforementioned Amazon, plus brands that include Vanguard, Intel, Nike, the Cleveland Clinic, Ware Elementary School in Kansas, and the Ojai Music Festival, proving that the flywheel effect can work for any and every endeavor where making real impact is the measuring stick of your success. So even if you don't have Collins' flywheel effect working for your business or organization right now, that's totally cool because you can start spinning your business's storytelling flywheel right now by answering this one question. What are you known for that makes you the most timely, relevant, and urgent offering for your customers? What do you stand for that makes you stand out? Write your answer down right now, and let's get this flywheel spinning. For me, I'm known as the world's most industrious storyteller who helps leaders of purpose-driven brands and their people excel through the stories they tell. Now, I didn't give myself that moniker of the world's most industrious storyteller. My clients did, because I have helped some of them, like Adelante Healthcare, grow by as much as 600% through the stories they tell. The industriousness is also seen in client LinkedIn campaigns that have grown engagement by as much as 400% over what they were doing. Or when we increased donations by over 300% for Goodwill of Central and Northern Arizona through a decidedly storytelling-directed event. So what are you known for? Amazon is known, of course, as the world's greatest marketplace. Airbnb is known for its ability to make you feel like you belong anywhere. Harman Corgis, a nationally recognized corgi/dog owner matchmaker in Perryton, Texas, is known as your corgi companion when selecting your, corgi companion. International sales consultant and my good friend Alice Hyman is known as the sales advisor for CEOs. Global marketer and another pal of mine, Daniel Nessel, uses his podcast, The Daniel Nessel Show, to be known as the guy who helps you widen your swim lane as an expert to deepen your impact. StoryPrompt is known as the SaaS platform that gives people more face time without the live calls. In fact, I use StoryPrompt to capture my customers' stories that demonstrate the trust they have in our Business of Story training and share those stories to accelerate our own know, like, and trust storytelling flywheel. You get the point, right? You see how that all works? So, how do you build your Business of Storytelling flywheel? You use the 3 story frameworks we teach, starting with the ABT, or the and, but, therefore, Agile Narrative Framework, to clarify your overarching brand narrative, what it is you stand for. Let me give you an example that features Andre Martin Hobbs, the founder of Prate Auto Partes, a Quebec, Canada used car dealership for customers with poor credit. I know what you're thinking. Used car dealership for people with bad credit. No, Andre and his dealership team are not sharks preying on financially strapped buyers. Instead, he designed Prate Auto Partes, which means ready car go in English, to help his fellow Canadians repair their credit through the purchase of and prompt payments on a car. After refining his brand story in 2017 using our story cycle system, Andre is now known as the #1 place in Canada to repair your credit. His unique value proposition is Prate Auto Partes, your vehicle to financial freedom. That's what they're known for. But don't take my word for it. Just go and visit their website, and you will see their likability factor is through the roof as they encourage their colleagues to share their individual stories about how they're helping their customers find the right car that fits their budget and how they provide ongoing financial coaching to ensure their customers are making their timely payments that will repair their credit. Plus, you'll see loads of happy customer testimonials on their site that show how much they like the financial guidance and service they get from Prate Auto Partes. In fact, Andre told me that one lady traveled 8 hours by bus to buy a car and start repairing her credit with his team. Now, that's trust and a hell of a story to share. Speaking of trust, Prate Auto Partes has received over 800 5-star reviews on Birdeye, a reputation management and reporting website. Andre and his story marketing team, of course, share those reviews to amplify their trust and become even better known as your vehicle to your financial freedom, leading to being even more likable as they help thousands of Canadians repair their credit and grow their trust factor with every success story. And their Business of Story flywheel gains momentum. It all started with the ABT that captured the Prate Auto Partes brand story. It goes, you want the convenience of owning a car and you wish for the freedom it provides, but you're stuck without your own transportation because you have bad credit. Therefore, you can now own a car to begin repairing your financial standing with Prate Auto Partes, your vehicle to financial freedom. Andre is building his entire empire on this one short but powerful ABT statement that clearly and compellingly focuses his brand story, what they're known for, that puts into motion his Business of Story know, like, and trust flywheel for immense impact. So, what's the ROI created by this storytelling flywheel impact? Well, Andre has become the largest and fastest growing auto dealership in Quebec and is now licensing his business model throughout North America. Talking about a virtuous cycle, right? In another example, I mentioned Harman Corgis for being known as your Corgi companion to help you find the perfect Corgi companion. I worked with Leslie Harman to create their ABT to get her Business of Story flywheel turning. Here it is. You are eager to expand your wonderful family with a cuddly Corgi pup. And if you find the right pooch with the proper temperament, then you'll be blessed with a lifelong companion. But you're suspect of dog peddlers because you or someone you know has been burned by unscrupulous breeders or sketchy backyard puppy mills. Therefore, imagine welcoming into your home a healthy Pembroke Welsh Corgi with the right energy level and temperament matched perfectly to you and your family by Harmon Corgis. From prepping you and your home to puppy school to health and nutrition to becoming part of your active Corgi community of owners, Harmon Corgis has been providing ideal companions to thousands of families since 1995. Now, their ABT is a bit longer than Andre's, but that's okay because all you want to do is to get your focus brand story down so that people know what you stand for to help you stand out. Leslie had already built a community of Corgi owners and regularly solicits and shares their stories. So she had a flywheel in place, and now she can be intentional on how to get it spinning faster to become even better known, liked, and trusted as the provider of your ideal Corgi companion. Let's take one last example, this time with a mega brand like Airbnb. What are they known for? Well, their central brand narrative is built on one idea, and that is belong anywhere. Their focus brand narrative is inspirational and aspirational because it speaks powerfully to three primary market segments: customers, hosts, and colleagues. If you're like Airbnb and you have more than one core audience, then I'd encourage you to write an ABT for each audience, placing them at the center of your story. And then find the connecting narrative thread that binds all of them together. For instance, their customer ABT might be something like, there are people who want to explore interesting places around the world and wish to feel less like tourists and more like locals. But typical tourism houses you in large hotels, promotes crowded tours, and separates you from the indigenous experiences you seek. Therefore, Airbnb accommodates explorers with authentic residences where you feel like you belong anywhere. Then they show you what it means to belong anywhere with Airbnb through the stories they share to become more likable and trusted. For instance, have you seen their Wall and Chain micro documentary? They shared the inspiration of the story you are about to hear on their YouTube channel. They wrote, quote, in May 2012, an Airbnb guest, Catherine, told us a powerful story of a trip she took to Berlin with her father, Georg, who was a Berlin Wall guard at the height of the Cold War. She wanted to show him the vibrant city Berlin had become, but it was the man they met at their Airbnb apartment that changed everything for Georg. Here
Berlin,
you go.
1987. My father was a guard on the west side of the Berlin Wall, while another man guarded the east. Eventually, the wall came down. But even after moving away, my father carried a piece of it with him. While I grew up, it lingered over all of us, a barrier between him and the rest of the world. I decided I would help by taking him back to Berlin to show him the beautiful place it had become. When we arrived, the stranger who answered the door became familiar. The guard who patrolled the opposite side of the wall now welcomed us as a friend. After that, things were better for my father. Airbnb. Belong anywhere.
This story that you just heard used the 5 primal elements of a short story for big impact, which is essentially an expanded ABT. I first learned about this simple story structure from my friends Sean Callahan and Mark Schenk of Antidote, a leadership storytelling consultancy in Melbourne, Australia. Mark has an amazing book out called Putting Stories to Work, Mastering Business Storytelling, that I highly recommend you put in your storytelling library. It has been invaluable for me. You can hear my conversation with Sean way back on episode number 41 called Your Limitless Storytelling Potential. And of course, you can use the tips and techniques from that conversation to help activate and get the momentum spinning for your business of story. Know, like, and trust Storytelling Flywheel for incredible impact. Now, I believe that the 5 primal elements of a short story are the easiest way to tell all of your stories. One other thing to keep in mind is to don't necessarily think about them as a story, because sometimes that can be intimidating to people. Think of your stories as moments in time when everything changed. So you want to start with a timestamp when this moment occurred. Since stories are temporal, meaning they happen over a period of time, you want to start with a timestamp to alert the limbic brain in your audience that something is about to happen that it should pay attention to. The thinking goes that since our limbic brain is primarily tasked with the survival of our being, and stories are essential learning tools, that it perks up to understand what it would need to do in case whatever is about to happen in your anecdote might happen to its host, so that this survival center can protect the person. That's the simple power of storytelling. Then I encourage you to share the location where this moment occurred. Use a couple illustrative, descriptive words to describe the scene so that you can fire up the theater of the mind. This gets your audience leaning in as they picture and feel the environment in which your story takes place. This helps you and your tale become vastly more memorable as your audience viscerally participates in your story, as if it's happening to them. Then you introduce a central character, not 2 people, not a team, a department, division, or entire organization. Nope. You just use one protagonist at the center of your story that your audience can relate to. You and your story's likability factor goes way up with a singular character in a singular narrative that your audience can live vicariously through. When, where, and who are your first 3 storytelling elements, which is essentially the and statement or act 1 of your ABT, as you set the scene and introduce your central character and what they wish for and want that's going to happen in the story. Then you describe what happens in Act 2, which is essentially the plot twist of the but section of your ABT. Again, use emotive words so that your audience easily comes along for the ride to determine what happens, because the best stories always have a surprising outcome. This leads to the aha moment that makes your business point for you. Airbnb used all of these elements as the structure for its wall and chain story, and they did it in 1 minute and 16 seconds. When you craft your stories to accelerate your business of story flywheel through the likability phase, just remember to determine when the moment occurred, describe where the moment happened, define your central character that experienced this moment of change, detail the events that happened in this moment and the surprising outcome, and declare the aha moment that makes your business point for you, essentially the moral of your story. Each real-world anecdote you share makes you more likable because, as foremost American social psychologist Jonathan Haidt reminds us, quote, our brains are story processors, not logic processors, end quote. If you'd like to hear his thoughts, Jonathan and I explored this idea on episode number 183, How Your Stories Can Unite Divided People. The link, of course, is in the show notes. So, job number 1 with the likability spoke of your business of story flywheel is to start collecting stories from your past and present clients and customers and feature these tales in your story marketing content that fuels your storytelling flywheel. And the cool thing is you can atomize the content from each of your stories into numerous valuable content marketing fragments. For instance, One interview, one story can be captured in a short video to share on your website, in social media, in sales presentations, and even to build camaraderie internally with your people by demonstrating the big-time impact you and they are making on your customers. Remember, your stories are not about what you make, but what you make happen for your colleagues, your customers, and the communities you serve. You can use audio from the video for your podcast, virtual meetings, and in creative uses in social media, combined with cool visuals. You can use the written transcript and blog posts, Substack articles, white papers, anywhere the written word is the preferred form of communication. You can highlight pull quotes from your story where they can amplify the impact of any of your communication tactics. You can create imagery inspired by the story to bedazzle any of these tactics. You can train your people on how to use the proven story structures of the ABT and the 5 primal elements by modeling it in each of these stories. Oh, and you, of course, can use each story to trigger other stories that your people may not have thought of or have not yet shared. In doing so, you will be building a valuable and potent storytelling library and culture. I think it's important to make a point here. I've been writing copy for nearly 40 years. As a young copywriter in my early days, the goal for all ad agencies was to be as creative and award-winning as possible with its copy, regardless if it was actually moving the needle on sales or not. Well, storytelling often got tossed out of the window in favor of the new big creative thing. I can tell you, in this day of cacophonous communication, clever copy doesn't hack it. People want and need to hear earnest stories about the impact you and your brand are actually making in the world. The absolute best, most efficient, attention-grabbing, revenue-generating communication effort you can make is telling a true story well. You will see your likability factor go through the roof, too. It's worth repeating. Your brand is the stories people tell about you when you're not in the room. So you want to make sure they're telling your story accurately and persuasively. And the only way to make that happen is to become an influential storyteller using our frameworks and the business of story, know, like, and trust storytelling flywheel. Stories simply sell. And now the compounding effect of becoming better known and liked. You know, that whole bit about becoming better known, the incorrigible ad contrarian Bob Hoffman would say, it may not be enough just to be better known. You want to be famous as a brand. Well, the flywheel will help you get there. And when you combine that with your escalating likability factor through the stories you tell, then the trust comes along with it. Now that you're building trust, how do you encourage your customers to share your story with their world? As I mentioned earlier, one way to do it is to use a platform like StoryPrompt to capture your customer testimonials so that you can easily share them on your website and in your story marketing. For instance, here is a short clip featuring a variety of customer testimonials for the business of story using StoryPrompt.
The and, but, and therefore model is pure genius. It allows you to relate to people, then it gives them the but, which tees up the problem, and then the therefore, which points the way to the different future, aka solution. And so it's pure genius. And if you start to play with it, as I have since you taught it to me, just like anything else, you develop some prowess with it, starts working, you're like, wow, it's almost weird how this works.
The ABT gets right to the point. For sales, there's just nothing like it. I have used it with many of the people that I coach and work with, and it has changed their messaging completely.
Hi, Bog. Thank you so much for the course, the ABTs of Agile Communication. I absolutely loved it. It was actionable and short, and I loved that I could apply it immediately and I didn't have to spend weeks and weeks in training.
ABT and this model of storytelling is built into us at a neurobiological level. and we share that with every human on the planet. Stories are constantly going from order into chaos and then emerging into a new order. And that's what ABT is all about. So the world of order is the world where we've got this and this. Okay, well that's the world as you know it, and it's orderly. And if the world stayed like that, it wouldn't be a story because it's just boring. You need to teach people to tell stories, but you don't need to teach people to listen to stories. They love them.
I'm obviously sharing them with you right now to help build your trust in me as the world's most industrious storyteller, helping leaders of purpose-driven brands and their people excel through the stories they tell. And if you're new to this podcast, now I'm hopefully known, liked, and trusted more by you. I even use the Know, Like, and Trust Storytelling Flywheel to prepare my guests for their appearances on my show. The guest rap sheet they fill out includes these 3 categories. When they fill out the form, I ask them what they are known for, their brand's unique value proposition, and then I have them fill out their bio, social links, etc., so I can help them be better known through the promotion of their appearance on our show. Then we up their likability factor by asking them to share one problem that we will be solving for our listeners in their episode. Plus, I really encourage them to share a minimum of 3 stories that demonstrate or show their business point or point of view in action. This, of course, makes for a much livelier conversation, and their likability goes way up. Then they move into the trust section when I ask them if they have a book or a course they'd like to share to demonstrate their expertise. And of course, I ask them to commit to sharing their appearance on the business of story through their own social channels and email campaigns so that we both become better known, liked, and trusted. Like most story structures, the Know, Like, and Trust Storytelling Flywheel is meta. You can use it for epic storytelling strategy, right down to individual tactics, just like I showed you with my guest rap sheet for the Business of Story podcast. I have found our Flywheel to be an invaluable 3-step storytelling strategy that will make your marketing much easier, faster, and considerably more compelling, attracting your prime prospects who lead to better buyers that convert into customers more quickly. Now, it's your job then to build trust by keeping the promises you make in your stories, by providing a remarkable product or service, and by delivering incredible customer service. Then your customers, colleagues, and the communities you serve will happily share your story with their worlds, helping you to become, you guessed it, even better known, liked, and trusted. As you start assembling your Business of Story Know, Like, and Trust Storytelling Flywheel, I have some additional resources for you to learn from. These are found on a special landing page that, of course, the link you will find in the show notes. These resources include my conversations with marketing luminaries. Like, for instance, to become better known, listen to my interviews with Seth Godin, show number 412, the story behind his new book, The Song of Significance. And listen to Jim Stengel, episode number 413, How to Build Brand Purpose and Profits with Your Business Storytelling. To use storytelling to become even more likable, listen to my conversations with Nancy Harhunt, episode number 395, How to Use Storytelling to Hack Human Behavior. Dan Heath, episode number 442, Why the Best Storytellers Are Slow and Curious. And of course, Bernadette Jiwa, number 408, How to Use the Power of Your Everyday Stories. And to up your trustworthiness, listen to episode number 445 with my good friend Bob Berg, How to Activate Your Know, Like, and Trust Storytelling Flywheel. If you found this episode helpful, and I hope you did, maybe even inspiring, please share it with someone you know who will benefit by activating their business of story, know, like, and trust storytelling flywheel. If I can help you and your people excel through the stories you tell, then please reach out to me at park@businessofstory.com. You can grow as a more confident, compelling, and persuasive storyteller through our keynotes, mastery courses, and online micro trainings, starting with learning the ABTs of Agile Communications at businessofstory.com/ABT. That's businessofstory.com/ABT. I'd love to thank Caden Howell for producing and editing our show, to Marissa Hill for marketing and community management, and to Darius Holbert, who composed our exceptional music. I hope you'll join us next Monday when we dive into data storytelling with Kat Greenbrook, author of the new book, The Data Storyteller's Handbook: How to Create Business Impact Using Data Storytelling. Thank you for listening, and remember, as you develop your storytelling skills and strategy, that the most potent story you will ever tell is the story you tell yourself. So make that one epic. Story on, my friend.